What is up, everybody? A quick little mini pod with myself and Tim Legler. This is the All NBA show, and we're going to talk about Russell Westbrook. Legs, he's been a revelation in Denver. He just had a perfect triple double, no turnovers, no missed shots. It's his second triple double this year. The Nuggets are 8-2 when he starts. So now that you see we're 30 games into the season, now that you see how he has fit with this Denver Nuggets roster, are you surprised by what you're seeing from him?
I am surprised by how comfortable the fit has looked because I think some of the previous stops for Russell Westbrook since he left Oklahoma City have not looked that way.
Yeah.
And it's like he's playing one style and everybody else is playing maybe a little bit different style. And he looked like he was trying so hard in some of these places and it was just not happening for him. So when it first came out that he was joining the Nuggets, I did not think that made a lot of sense to me in terms of his style, his spacing issues because of his lack of 3-point shooting. I don't think he's not a smart player. I just don't necessarily think he makes great decisions because I think he thinks athletically he can pull anything off. And I think that's gotten him in trouble in the past. So that was what I was wondering. Like on a team like this that's got such great chemistry, cohesion offensively, and Jokic, this super cerebral guy, the way he wants to play, and then you got this guy that is just playing with reckless abandon like all the time. How's that going to work? And he's going to have a hard time spacing the floor off Jokic and Murray. It hasn't been a problem. Now he's obviously not shooting threes and making threes, but the ways he's impacting the game are things that Denver specifically needed. They needed speed. They needed athleticism. They needed competitiveness. And he's brought all of those things because this dude wants to win. He is tough. He wants to win. And you can see he has great reverence for Nikola Jokic. So his ability to play with him because of how much he respects him and understands who he is and how great he is, that's enabled Westbrook to really blend in and fit and more than just like be out there. He's impacting their ability to win games. So I'll give him all the credit in the world. I did not think this was a great fit. He's making it one.
And the impact that you're talking about, one, he's a really good cutter because he's so quick that, give and goes with Jokic. He gives it and he's beating the other guy off the blocks and he's getting into the paint. So he's a really good cutter. He's a good offensive rebounder. But more than anything, the Nuggets are, we just stick to the offensive end for a second. The Nuggets are number one in the NBA in points in the paint. A lot of that is him getting the ball to Jokic in the paint. Jokic is averaging a career high in points. A lot of that is he's getting him the ball. And they're number one in the NBA in fast break points. And I think that's a lot of Russell Westbrook. The Nuggets have not been a great fast breaking team, but he plays with an energy. Jokic clears the boards and pushes in transition or gets it to him and he pushes in transition. And that's a part of the pairing that I think people overlooked in the offseason. You see it now. Denver dominates the fast break.
One of the things that those numbers too, Adam, don't reflect is the number of plays that Russell Westbrook creates a surge up the floor that might not lead directly to transition offense, or in some cases, even necessarily that, obvious secondary offense.
Right.
But on that possession, they might end up with a great shot. And it's all because they put the defense on their heels from the beginning. You force an overreaction to a guy pushing the ball that far. So now you're imbalanced defensively and you're scrambling around. So maybe it's 3 passes later, someone scores. That doesn't even register in those numbers that you just cited. And yet it's all directly attributed to what Westbrook did on that possession. Because I watched Denver possessions when that exact thing happens. And sometimes it's after a made free throw where all of a sudden you're running back as fast as you can. You're like, oh my gosh, this guy's coming up the floor 80 miles an hour. And now you get a flooding to the paint, which leads to a trail guy being open. Even if he doesn't have the shot, there's a hard closeout. And now you can beat somebody off the dribble, get in, maybe one more kick out for a shot. That's not fast break offense. That's not secondary break offense. It's just good offense, and it's created by Westbrook. So he's been even more impactful in that regard than those numbers indicate.
Well, another area, the Nuggets last year were 29th in free throw attempts per game. They're first this year. It's the same roster. You swap KCP for Russell Westbrook and this is what you get. But the reason for that, I believe, is Jokic and really the Nuggets at large have always been good at drawing off-ball fouls, but not shooting fouls. Jokic avoids contact when he goes into a scoring motion. Westbrook gets you in the bonus. So now all of this jostling teams try to do with Jokic for post position, these be turned into fouls. And when you're in the bonus, those become free throws. So it's another area has helped. And one other area, and I'm curious to get your opinion. Defensively, he can be bad at rotations. He can miss assignments, but he's such an active defender. He gambles. He pressures you. He doesn't sit back and try to shadow you. He attacks you defensively. And I think Denver's needed somebody like that. Bruce Brown used to play defense like that. He actually reminds you in a lot of ways of a super Bruce Brown in that defensively he's creating turnovers. That's part of why they get such fast breaks. And so I think that's another part of this. Denver hasn't been great defensively as a team, but they have generated a lot of steals.
Great point. And, defensively, I don't think Russell Westbrook's ever been probably given enough credit for how good he can be defensively. And look, when he was in Oklahoma City, particularly after Durant left, when he was the entire show for them every night, yeah, you could watch games where maybe he took a play off or he didn't fight over a screen that he needed to earlier in the game, but he would dig in when they needed him to dig in. And on some of these other teams since Oklahoma City, when he's been typically paired with another guy that was more important offensively or higher in the pecking order, I think his defense got even better. So I think he is a guy that is competitive, and particularly the deeper you get into the game, the more important the possession, the more effort you're going to get out of him on that end of the floor. So, man, I've been a fan of Westbrook, his entire career. The decision-making at times with shot selection and turnovers would cloud that a little bit as he got deeper into his career. And you always were kind of wondering, like, what's the trade-off here? And is it worth it?
Yeah.
And, because his name would always come up with these different teams. It is worth it, man. I think it's paid off for Denver. I think they give them credit because they identified a player that maybe some people would think is not the easiest to assimilate to what you're doing. And I think it's been pretty damn good. And I give Westbrook credit more than anybody else, but I'm going to give the Nuggets credit as well for identifying a player like that I think a lot of people, like myself, were a little bit skeptical of when they added him.
Let me ask you this one, because he started 10 games. They've won 8 of those 10, and they've looked really good. Most of those have been for Jamal Murray, although the last handful have been alongside Jamal Murray instead of Aaron Gordon. So you get the 2-point guard lineup or look. He has 73 assists to Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray, for reference, has 58. So he has 15 more assists to Jokic in 100 fewer minutes. He gets the ball to him at a rate nobody has ever got it to him. Jokic scoring like crazy. Is there any world where when Aaron Gordon comes back, you think Russell Westbrook should be starting, most likely in Christian Brown's place, so you run with both point guards at the same time?
I don't think so, but I don't think that anything's off the table for Michael Malone. I think that, he's going to have to kind of evaluate that as you get into the second half of the season, closer to the playoffs. I don't think so and I don't know that it would be necessarily the best thing, because I think Russell Westbrook is a guy, and Christian Brown's going to play just as hard off the bench too, but Russell Westbrook's not a guy right now that you necessarily need to have to continue. Like, it's almost like you're grooming Christian Brown for something bigger, and he's already assumed that role. And I think it's important that and he's played well for them. So I think it's important that he continue along those lines. Now, look, you might have certain stretches of games with lineups, or maybe even the end of a game sometimes, if that was really clicked with Westbrook and Murray on the floor together, then you'll go with that later in the game. I don't know that I'd want to start the game on a nightly basis like that, because I don't know. I'm not saying it would hurt Christian Brown's or dispirit him or make him give you less effort, but at the same time, it would kind of feel like, wait, what's going on? This was supposed to be something where it's like each year now, and really each night for him, and he's growing. And now that would feel a little different to him. So interesting to see what they do with that going forward based on the numbers you're giving and the data with how good they are with Westbrook and Jokic out there together.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I'd like to see Christian Brown stay in that starting spot going forward.
My last question for you on Russ. Last year in the playoffs for the Clippers, it was a disaster. They just didn't guard him. It's like the playoffs, you get to a real specific adjustment and they say, you know what, that guy can't shoot. We're just going to pack the paint. And it killed him. Jokic has opened up the paint. He inverts the offense in a way that the Clippers couldn't last year. Do you think that Russell Westbrook will succeed in the playoffs this year? Do you think he'll be less impactful than he was in the regular season, the same, or maybe even better because he'll be sharing the court with Nikola Jokic?
I think the playoffs are going to be a challenge for him again, because that's when the real details and the scrutiny come in terms of the other team's scouting reports and game plan and ability to execute that. When you get the Denver Nuggets now, and you've had one walkthrough to talk about them or one short film session because you're playing somebody else every other night, you're not going to be able to pull off some sort of an orchestrated game plan against Russell Westbrook to force him into spots on the floor where he has to take certain shots he doesn't want. That's just harder to pull off with very little time to prepare. When you're talking about a playoff series where you've got a minimum probably of like 2 or 3 days for the first game, and then you've got 24 to 48 hours more or longer between games, and all you're talking about is the same opponent, much more easy to expose individual personnel weaknesses in the playoffs. So I do think that is still going to be a little bit of a concern for him because he's shooting a three at a 22% clip. He shot it at a 23% clip in the playoffs last year when they lost to Dallas. And that's on like few attempts. He's not taking a ton right now. You might be able to force him into more in a playoff series because you're just going to make sure you're more committed to making sure that's the guy that's left open and see what Russell Westbrook does to get around that. So I do think he's going to be targeted a little bit in that regard and how they defend Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon, and then Russell Westbrook being the one guy that they're going to live with whatever he wants to do offensively from the perimeter.
I'm going to take the opposite side on this. Jokic shooting 50% from three this year, leads the NBA. I think he has made that adjustment knowing he needed to make that adjustment to fit with Russ this year. There was an emphasis for him. And I think that the paint's going to be open. And if you look at the season, especially over these last 10 games or so, the chemistry between Jokic and Russ was good out of the package, but it's getting better. And I think those two are figuring out how they work together. I think in the playoffs, you never play Westbrook when Jokic is not on the court. You tie them together. You say, only when he's on the court can he get on the court. And I just think it's going to work this year. Russ does some stuff that Denver desperately needs. And Denver has never had a quick point guard. Bones Highland, really the only quick point guard in 10 years with Jokic. Russell Westbrook is the quickest player to play with Jokic. And I think what you're seeing is when you have to jump out at Jokic at the three-point line, when you have to guard him on the short roll, you can't stay in the paint. And because of that, Russ gets to the paint. And at the moment, he's finishing at the rim. I think he's going to be fine in the playoffs. I'm not saying great, but I think it's going to be more or less like the regular season, not like last year where it was a tale of two different, stints.
Well, the one thing you know for sure about Russell Westbrook, he's not running from the light. He's running to the light. He likes those spots. He likes the stakes being raised. He's got an incredible amount of playoff experience throughout his career. So you're right about that. He's going to be ready for the moment. And you look at what he's done this month. He's 51% in the month of December from the field.
Yeah.
And he's never been a super efficient player. He's 44 for the season, and that's kind of where he's been throughout his career. But he's 51% this month. And normally guards, especially guards that mainly rely on athletic ability, they get a little bit older. It's harder to be efficient in any month. Yep. So give him credit, man. 51. I think he's at like 6 boards, 7 assists. This month, that's high level production in the minutes he's given them.
There's only been 3 players ever to give Jokic 100 assists, meaning 100 assists to Jokic in a season. Jamal Murray has done it 3 times. Monte Morris did it the year he was the starting point guard, and Will Barton did it 1 year. Russell Westbrook already has 73. He's going to get 200 assists to Jokic by the end of the year. It's really an outlier. Jokic's never had a player that could deliver him the ball as well as Russell Westbrook has. It's been fun to watch. He is Tim Legler. We do the All-NBA show 4 times a week live on this very channel. Make sure you are subscribed. We're going to have more videos for you going forward as well, just like this, shorter little mini pods for our off days. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, hit that like button for us. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. We'll see you on the other side.